in St. Louis. And a lot has been said about the ineptitude of the management team. There were a lot of great times and great players in the 28 years here. Four of those great players join me now live. Former All-Pro linebackers Larry Stallings and Bill KOMAN. Former All-Pro defensive back Roger WEHRLI. And maybe the only consistent kicker the Big Red has ever had, Jim BAKKEN. Guys, this is a sad day for St. Louis sports fans. We've been sort of expecting it for a while, but it still comes as quite a shock. How about to you guys?
Well, I think it is a shock, even though we were put on record 3 years ago that this might happen. I think each of us held out hope that something would happen to keep the team in St. Louis. Apparently, as late as 2 months ago or whatever, a nice offer was put in front of the owner, but I think one thing we can all experience is that you don't call Bill Bidwell's bluff, and when he says something, he means it. And 3 years ago, he said to the city, I need these things, and maybe we waited too long.
Now, we could get into blame for all this. Maybe the fans, maybe the politicians, maybe Bill Bidwell. Let's talk a little bit about playing for Bill Bidwell. I've been told that his former players might not send him too many Christmas cards. Is that true? What was it like playing for him?
Well, Mike, it depended on some players he got along with, some he didn't. He was a man that, as Jim said, you didn't bluff, and some people tried to and didn't get along with him very well. I got along all right with him, had no problems.
Did he treat his players pretty well, the ones he liked?
Well, I'll tell you what, I guess I'll take the cue since I'm the senior member in this young crowd here today. Of course, I can laugh back on the days that I knew Billy when he was single, and I guess would be remiss if I didn't say he was even miserable when he was single, because obviously we were all very upset that the Cardinals are leaving, but Billy's a darn good businessman, and take it from one who raised 7 children in this town, and the town has been very, very good to me, that I appreciate everything the Cardinals did for me, and I'm really going to miss them.
Let's talk a little bit about football back in the 1960s and what that was like. Did they fill the stands? Was this a good football town back then?
Well, I think so. When we first came to St. Louis and played in Old Bush Stadium, of course the stadium only seated about 35,000, and it was basically filled after the first couple of years.
What about in the 70s? Of course, we all hear about the glory days of the football Cardinals during the Don Coryell years. Was this a good football town then, too?
Well, I think very much so. I can remember the times during the mid-70s, 74, 75, and 76, when we were winning and had a good football team and called the Cardiac Cardinals. I can remember after winning the division championship, coming back and having to go into the at the airport, to the annex at the airport, because all the fans were out and really bringing us back in. And it was a great football town at then. Of course, the stadium was filled. And even the team in the early 70s and the later 70s, when we weren't winning that much, we still had good crowds. You know, we would fill the stadiums for the games against Dallas and against Washington and have good crowds for the rest of the teams.
So the question is, what was the beginning of the end? A lot of people feel it might have been 1977 when the football Cardinals drafted quarterback Steve Pizarkowicz in the first round. Let's go back to that year in the words of George Boone.
Same question, Ben. I think we kind of surprised ourselves in one way, in that we didn't count on him being there, but we knew that if he was there, we felt like we just had to take him.
They felt like they just had to take him. That really keyed Don Coryell's departure here from St. Louis, and Coryell, of course, was an innovative coach and led the Cardinals to the playoffs in the 70s.
I think it actually goes back further than that, Mike. I think it goes back to the problems Dave Butts had in signing his contract. I think it goes back to the point where Pat Fisher was let go for a couple of draft choices. I can remember Bob DeMarco and Irv Goody and some of these other fine players in the 70s that when Mr. Bidwell bought the team, there was friction there. And then, of course, the Pizarkowicz thing is highlighted in recent years. But I think in the 70s, we had a window of opportunity to build on with a great coach in Coryell, an exciting offense. And what happened was they didn't get the defensive players to help the Larry Stallings and the rest of the fellas that were humping hard on defense, but they really needed some additional draft choices.
All right. Larry Stallings, Bill KOMAN, Roger WEHRLI, Jim BAKKEN, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for the memories. Dick, Karen, back to you.
That's the truth. When you see those four guys, you know we have some memories in St. Louis
Had
with
some
the Big
football.
Red, too. Next, the Democratic